It was when I started to be kind to myself and just give myself a break that things really did start to turn around. And I think that's what's missing for a lot of us, is this self-compassion. We're taught to be compassionate to other people, but we're not taught it, particularly women, we're not taught it for ourselves. The consumer has moved on, and I wish that the industry would catch up and just embrace different body types.
This episode does touch on difficult subjects, including eating disorders. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, you can contact Samaritans 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Call 116-123 or email Jo, that's J-O, @samaritans.org. Hello and welcome to Shaping Success, a brand new and very exciting podcast from Simply Be, all about women at the top of their game with me, Fleur East. As a singer and broadcaster, I'm inspired by women who push boundaries, women who have carved a different path to society's stereotypes, women who refuse to fit in. And I want to find out who and what shaped their journey to success. So in this podcast series, I'm joined by female icons from all walks of life to talk about their inspirations, heroes, and the moments that changed them. We'll hear from some of the biggest female names and the ones you might know less about as they share their remarkable stories of determination and dedication and reveal the moments and icons that have shaped them along the way. Ultimately, our guests all have one thing in common. They're killing it. So let's meet them. Today, I'm joined by a woman who wears many hats. As a best-selling author and journalist, chart-topping podcast host and fashion designer, Alex Light is one of Britain's leading body confidence advocates. A former eating disorder sufferer, Alex has successfully built a platform that celebrates women's unfiltered bodies with a loyal following to match. Her work is a source of inspiration to men and women struggling with body image issues, and her open and honest approach has opened the door for these all-important conversations to be had. Welcome to Shaping Success, Alex Light.
Hi, oh, that was so nice. Thank you, what an intro.
It's just the reality of your life.
I would like that as my alarm clock ringtone, you know, just to get me up in the morning.
I mean, it's great. Like listening back to that, you're just like, sorry, who?
Yeah, I'm like, oh my God, tell me more. This is great.
Well, that's why we're here, actually, to learn all about how you got to this amazing place in your career, what has shaped the woman that you are today. So firstly, let's kick off with the moments that have shaped you and everything you've achieved. Now, one of the biggest moments that probably most people know you for comes in the form of a social media post that you shared when you were 27.
Yeah.
And you already had a huge online following because of your beauty and fashion journalism. But this post changed your life, right?
Totally. And looking back now, I'm like, how did I share that post? It's just shocking to me now. It's in such contrast. That post was in such contrast to the online life that I was living at the time. I was so focused on fashion and beauty, but in a really filtered and curated way and edited way. You know, all of my photos were completely retouched to the point where I didn't really resemble the actual photo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I edited everything. I nipped my waist in and shaved down my chin so I didn't have a double chin, and I would, slim my thighs, and I really went to town on it. And ultimately, I think at some point I realised that what I'm doing is so at odds with what I am learning behind the scenes. You know, I've been through this eating disorder. I've been through hell with my body and my body image. Most women feel bad about their bodies, and all I'm doing is perpetuating that and perpetuating beauty standards and feeding into that. And at some point I started to feel like that's not right. And out of nowhere, I just decided to share this post that was just very honest about my battles with my body and my weight and eating that I'd had, my whole life. And it just opened this door for me that I can't imagine being anywhere else now. I really can't. I can't imagine still being stuck back there, because it's just opened this whole new world to me that's been so incredibly liberating and, for want of a better word because it's overused, but empowering as well. And it's been really wonderful. So I'm so glad I shared that post, but it was terrifying at the time. It was really terrifying. When you're trying to keep up an image and you're trying to curate your image and have full perfect control over it and sort of maintain this image of perfection, it's very scary to, what it feels like, let the mask slip and be vulnerable. And thank God I did.
Well, I can only imagine what you were thinking at that time, but I wanted to actually ask you, like, take me back to that moment, literally before you pressed like share.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind? Like, what was your biggest fear before you posted that?
It's weird because I had so many fears, and the 90% of me was like, what are you doing? Don't do this. Just carry on as you have been. But it was like this part of me that I just couldn't quite silence. And I just felt like I had to do it. That's the only thing. Like, it was just this overriding, like, I just feel like I've got to do it. I was scared because it felt at that time, I think now there's much less stigma around eating disorders and low body image and low self-esteem. But at the time, I mean, there's still, don't get me wrong, there still is a lot of stigma around those issues. But at the time, it didn't feel like anybody was talking about these things. And I felt like, and it sounds stupid to say it now, but I felt like I was the only person in the world going through what I was going through. I didn't know what the response was going to be when I shared that post. And it was unbelievable, the response that I had instantly. Like, it was just overwhelming amount of people, and so many people that I knew as well, which was the most shocking thing to me. It was people that I knew really well, had known my whole life, and they messaged me and said, I've actually got some of these problems too. And I was like, what? It's so sad that we go through this so alone and so scared of saying, and just feeling so full of shame. I think that's the really sad thing, is that we feel so much shame around any eating problems or body image problems. And it's sad, really, because there are so many of us in that boat, in the same boat. And I think there is power in connection over it, for sure.
And you mentioned that obviously you helped so many others in posting that. But it's so interesting because you had such an amazing career already, like before that moment. And then as soon as you shared that, you opened up a whole new world. Yeah. And I mean, you would never have known the impact that you would have had on other people's lives, let alone your own.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, what are the moments that shaped you that people don't know about? Because we've seen that you share everything, you're very open online.
Yeah.
But are there any moments that you've experienced that were maybe negative that have helped shape who you are now?
Slightly hesitant to talk about it for no other reason than I've never really properly gone into it. But I think one of the biggest events in my life was I met a guy when I was at uni, when I was 18, and we started going out, and we went out until I was 29. At 29, he told me he was gay.
Oh.
And so we obviously broke up. I thought it was going in a different direction. I thought we were about to get engaged and get married. And that was that was a really pivotal moment for me. Because it turned my life upside down.
Yeah.
Totally. In an instant. And coming out of it, I mean, it was horrendous at the time. Everyone knows all breakups are just absolutely horrendous. But coming out of it, it really made me realise how resilient I was and strong I was. And it's something that I've never felt before. And looking back now, I'm like, of course I am. I went through this eating disorder that was so hard to recover from. Like, it was so painful, so difficult, so many setbacks. So I had been strong and I had been resilient, but I think it was that made me realise that I really am. I can take stuff and I can deal with it. And so, yeah, that probably wasn't what you were expecting. Sorry.
But thank you for being so open.
It's what comes to mind, really.
The timeline straight away just popped up in my mind, because you said you were with this partner till you're 29.
Yeah.
And you posted that life-changing post when you were 27.
Yeah.
So do you think that having gone through that and having the courage to post that then allowed you to be stronger when that relationship ended?
Definitely. Yeah. I think all of that stuff would have contributed to me being a lot more sure of myself as well. A lot more confident in myself. For sure, 100%. I was really, really lacking in confidence before that. And I mean, I didn't get instant confidence from posting that post. That's obviously not how things happened. But it definitely sowed a seed and increased my just my belief in myself, I guess, and my self-esteem. And I think definitely has made me more capable of dealing with other things. Yeah, for sure.
It's good to look behind the curtain there to see what was actually happening in your life at that time, and that post meant so much more than people even realise, really.
Totally.
So what about any positive moment in your life that happened in your personal life that helped make you who you are today?
I will always go back to therapy for me for this. In so many other ways than just with body issues, when I first got help for my eating disorder, I think I was 25, maybe 26. And I got a therapy and it opened my world up, because prior to that, I had believed that my only worth in this world, my only value was based around how I looked, my appearance, and specifically how thin I was, which sounds mad. I know it sounds like super reductive as well, but that's just how I felt. I was in that space where I believed that unless I was thin, that I just wasn't worthy, that I wasn't desirable or worthy of success or love or anything like that. I just felt like that's what I needed, thinness. And that made my life so small. So small, and made my focus so small. And I wasn't, for that reason, obviously, I wasn't living like a happy, fulfilling life by any means, because I had this goal, this arbitrary goal that when I reached it, it didn't actually bring me anything. And my therapist opened me up to the idea that there was more to me than how I looked and what size I was. And at first I was like, yeah, you're lying. You just want me to get better. Like, you just want me to recover. I was just reluctant initially, and I was very resistant to the idea. But she sowed a seed, and the more I began to explore and learn, the more I realised, like, this is true. I have so much more to offer the world and myself than just what I look like. And it's so narrow how I've been living, and I've not worked to really build myself a life that has much meaning because of this. So it felt like I really owe so much to her. She just opened up my world. That's how it feels. I don't know if that sounds too dramatic, but that's just how it feels like it went.
I mean, you said that, looking back now on your attitude back then, like when you said, you were just so obsessed with being thin and how that's mad to you. But there'll be so many people like listening and watching this going, oh my gosh, that's how I feel right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, so freeing, and to be in this position that you are now, to look back and go, oh my goodness, how was that even in my head?
And to those people as well that do feel like that is so normal. Literally, the conditioning that we've been subject to from the world that we've grown up in has led us to that point of thinking that our only worth as women particularly lies with how we look and with how thin we are. I mean, that's the message that we get from all angles. It's nobody's fault but the industry's fault. I definitely think being immersed in that culture had an impact, because it was then that, I mean, I'd had disordered eating my all my life until then. Literally ever since I became aware of my body, I'd had disordered eating, and I'd been on a diet, like a constant diet, 1,000 diets. But it wasn't until I began working in the fashion industry that I seemed to, like, my mental state seemed to enter darker territory, and I was then officially diagnosed with an eating disorder. That's when things really began to spiral. So I definitely think there's a correlation, for sure. But it's hard looking back and recognizing that, because it all just felt so normal. Like that thinness, that obsession with thinness and the fear of fatness, that just felt normal at the time. Like, I never thought to question that. It's only now that I, question that. But at the time I was too immersed in it to realize that this is wrong, and it's weird, and it's not right.
And people talk about it all the time, about the impact of social media. But I mean, you mentioned earlier the extent you were going to with the editing of your photos. I mean, talk to me about just the bubble of social media and how much that affected you, because there was a lot of effort going into that.
So for years there have been apps that you can buy that do this for you really easily, and you pay a couple quid and then you can. But before those apps even existed, I downloaded Photoshop and learned how to use the liquify filter so I could manually shape my body.
So like industry level, what they were doing with magazines.
Yeah, like airbrusher level. Yeah. Because I just felt so incredibly insecure in my own skin, and I wasn't confident enough to put a picture of myself as I actually truly was out there, which is just, it's so hard to fathom that, to reconcile that now with how I feel now. But that's how it was. I don't think I put out one picture that wasn't edited. But it was also super common at that time. I mean, it probably still is. I think I'm in my own bubble now of confidence and, you know, body image, and it's really a really happy, positive place. But I would go on trips with other journalists or with other influencers, and we'd all sit there and edit. It was just the norm. It's just what we did. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I know. It's so weird now looking back. It's so strange.
Yeah, there's been such a revolution since then.
Yeah. I think so. I hope so. I'm not sure how widespread it is. Again, because I live in this bubble, I do think that a lot of photo editing still exists. And I absolutely think that everyone should take what they consume on social media with a pinch of salt and realise that there is still a lot of curation and editing going on. But I would like to think that we are moving away from that. But there is a quote that I love that's, even the girl in the photo doesn't look like the girl in the photo. I just think it's so true. And I think everyone should keep that in mind as they're consuming on social media. Enjoy it, like use social media for fun, whatever, but don't let it induce feelings of inadequacy, because so much of what you're seeing isn't real. And, you know, you are seeing like a snippet of someone's life, whereas you're living the day-to-day messy realness of your own life, and it's just not comparable.
When you posted that social post, when you literally broke yourself free, literally, you said you got so many messages from people. What kind of response did you get from people? What were they saying, like online, outside of your friends that you mentioned?
So it was a lot of, oh my God, I'm exactly the same. I didn't know anyone else experienced any of this. And a lot of people that were shocked that someone was talking about it openly on the internet, and they were shocked that it wasn't just them. Exactly how I felt. Literally, it was exactly how I felt, that we were like together in this. And it sounds so cheesy, but it did feel like a community suddenly of these people who understand, like they get it. And they're happy to have found someone that understands as well. So it was pretty magical, actually. I remember being on a high for ages after that. You know, it didn't solve my problems. That's the thing. You know, I still had a lot of work to do, but it definitely gave me the boost that I needed.
But I mean, how amazing that you were that person, and you are still that person that inspires so many others to break free, to feel like there's others out there that are going through the same struggles as them. Who was the person in your life, like in your personal life, that helped shape you? I can't pick one person because they're all women, but I've got 4 sisters and my mum, and I couldn't pinpoint one of them, but all of them have been, and they were such a huge, and continue to be such a huge support to me. In what way? What was life like growing up with them? With
chaos. I've got 4 little sisters, and it was absolute chaos, and I just felt hard done by my whole life. I should have been an only child. Like, where's all my attention? I feel like a proper victim. No, do you know what? We were really lucky, because I know that with a lot of children, it can become a competitive environment, but it wasn't like that for us. Even though a few of us have had our own separate body image issues and eating issues, they never crossed over, they never overlapped, and there was no like competitiveness or anything like that. So that was really lucky. And as we've all grown up, it's just a huge support. It also means that there are a lot of arguments that I need to, sort out. Like, what now? Who's done what now? But yeah, just a lot of support. I'm very grateful for the women in my life, for sure.
Who was the person that was outside of your inner circle, outside of your family, that helped shape you along the way?
Do you know what, actually? And I haven't talked about her yet, but so Iskra Lawrence, the plus size models
Okay.
who really kind of went viral on Instagram. I remember discovering her, and I mean, I say plus size, I mean, she's barely above straight size, you know?
Yeah.
However, at the time when we were all so just programmed to see only very thin women in media, in advertising, on Instagram, seeing her display her body in a positive context, not in a negative context of like, this is her before picture, she's going to lose weight and she'll come back as an after picture, you know, where she's lost all the weight. It was like, no, there's this woman who doesn't quite fit the societal standard of beauty, and she's embracing that. And she looks confident and she looks so good. And I remember thinking, like, she looks so good, but I can tell that she's not thin. And I think only thinness looks good. So why do I think she looks good? And that was really interesting for me. And then, like, moving on from that, following people on social media, starting to find people and following people on social media who were all different shapes and sizes, and some people that looked like me and some that didn't. It really began to desensitize me, because I won't lie, at first, it's, you know, seeing plus size people looking and feeling so good in their own bodies, it was shocking. It felt like a shock just because it's something that we'd never ever seen before. But I was quickly desensitized to that, and then I felt like I was opening up to the beauty of those people and opening up to beauty that lay outside of the standard, you know. And that was really cool, because I think that ultimately allowed me to see the beauty in myself as well. I remember seeing a girl on Instagram who had a body shape and size super similar to mine. My first thought when I saw her was, oh wow, she looks great. And then my second thought was, well, we're a really similar shape and size. And if I can look at her and think that she looks great, why do I look at myself and think, oh, it's horrible, it's gross, it needs fixing, you need to fix this, fix that? And that was a really powerful moment for me, because it made me realize that this is a problem with my mind. It's not a problem with my body. There's nothing wrong with my body. My body's fine. It's just, it's my perception of my body, and that's what needs fixing, not my body.
And what's really cool is that because you've been on the other side of it, so like seeing that example and knowing that it challenged your perception, that must now feed everything that you share online.
Yes.
Because you're so informed. You're like, actually, I never saw this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to post about this. Or how does that impact the way that you post and what you share? Because you've had that experience.
It makes me like, I'm so eager to get all of this out and like talk to people face to face and be like, look, like, I promise you this is really powerful. If you realize it, it's really powerful. But I also, you know, I'm a very impatient person. But I have to remember as well that this took me a really long time, you know, it took me a long time and a lot of prompts and a lot of those pivotal moments. But I just really am genuinely desperate for this preoccupation with weight, because I just see the impact that it has on, you know, the women in my life and the women that message me every day on Instagram. It has this huge impact on their lives, and it's really, for a lot of people, it stops them from living their life, because they feel like they can't truly live how they want to live until they look a certain way, until they've lost this amount of weight, or they fit this size of jeans, or they look like their after picture and they've got that glow up, you know, and they don't actually allow themselves to live properly how they want to live. And that is exactly how I did, you know, I totally get it. But I just think, like, it's sad, and it also makes me a bit angry as well, because this is all coming from an industry, from the diet industry, that is just profiting extremely well off of our insecurities.
So how did you even get into the world of fashion and beauty journalism? How did that happen?
Yeah, it was pretty random, actually. I did French at university and I moved to Paris. And I just kind of very, very luckily fell into a job at Hugo Boss there.
Oh, what?
I know, casual.
It just happens.
As you do, I know. And then I moved to Diesel there in Paris afterwards. And I'd always wanted to be a writer. And while I was there at Diesel, I had a lot of free time when I was working on reception, and so I sent my CV to loads of different magazines in the UK, and I got an internship at Cosmo. Yeah, I think like a couple of weeks turned into a few months there, and then I applied for a job at Hello magazine in Madrid, as you do.
This story is amazing.
It's random.
No, amazing. Yeah.
So then I moved to Madrid and started with Hello, and I was there for then 10 years. I was there for a really long time. Yeah. Until the point where, you know, it felt like it wasn't sitting right with me anymore.
I find it so interesting now hearing the way that you got into your career, that you were in the fashion world.
Yeah.
You were literally surrounded by all this imagery.
Yeah.
But all of the things that triggered so much in your mind. So it's like it actually now took even more, looking back now and listening to you, even more for you to post that post.
Yeah.
That changed everything, because you weren't only going against the thoughts that were in your mind.
Yeah.
You were going against like an industry that you'd worked in for so long.
Yeah.
Going against your foundation, like
everything I knew, actually.
Huge.
Yeah. And as well, you know, I don't know how old you are, not putting you on the spot, but like I was born in born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, and as you know, we had all of that, you know, like the Olsen twins and Paris Hilton and Nicole Richie and Lindsay Lohan and the toxic tabloids of that era as well, that were really hugely focused on women's weight. And if a woman was to put on a little bit of weight, they'd have the hoop of horror,
the circle of shame,
the red ring around them, you know, or they call them like a beach whale or something. And it just all felt, and I can't believe looking back now that I never challenged that stuff, but I didn't, and it just felt normal. So yeah, it was definitely going against a lot of what I knew and had learned. Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you were just so honest and opened up, because it's important to understand like where these things where everything comes from, because you know you are your beginnings, right? And you can't understand where you're going until you understand where you came from. And you've come from the world of fashion. So I wanted to ask you, how important is it to wear the right outfit that shapes your mentality?
Have you seen that meme that says, I'm nicer when I like my outfit?
Yes.
That is like me to a T. But for me, it's mostly about comfort. If I'm not comfortable, I'm not happy. But I've had I feel like I've really, and I think it's still ongoing, that I struggle with fashion, because for my entire life, I dressed to make myself thinner. I dressed to make myself look thinner. Oh. I didn't dress in what I thought I liked or what I thought helped me express myself. I just dressed in what was going to be flattering. And I think it's taken me a long time and I'm still unlearning in that. And I'm still trying to figure out like, what is the fashion that I love and I love to wear? Because I used to think for the longest time, like I only like big, oversized, baggy things. Yeah. And actually, I think a lot of it was down to me just trying to hide my figure and hide my body. That made me feel more comfortable with my body not being on display. So I think I'm still in the process of like transitioning to that and like exploring things that I haven't before, exploring wearing things that I haven't before. And that is cool. That's really exciting. But for the longest time, I was like, I only like winter fashion. I like coats and boots and, you know, big, chunky things.
Things that you could hide.
Things that you could hide. And now I'm like, it's because I could hide. Yeah, I didn't like summer fashion because it meant more skin on display, more of my body on display, skimpier clothing. So I think this will resonate with a lot of people who are listening who feel that way. And I follow, you know, a lot of plus size creators who talk about this as well. Lauren Smith, who I think has, who I think has worked with Simply Be, but she, she talks about how she used to hide her body in what she thought was flattering, and now she wears like these super cute dresses. She always looks amazing, you know, in these gorgeous summer dresses, and I just think it's so great that we're just stepping out of that, what we think is like our comfort zone, but actually is just a bit of a cage. kind of trapping us a little bit, and we're just feeling stifled, and we're not able to express, we're not able to use fashion as an expression. It's just more of a mask.
So through this like process of exploration
Yeah.
with fashion, what do you find is like your go-to style? What's the thing you'd go for when you're shopping that you think, yeah, that would make me feel confident? Because you must have found those things that you're like, yeah.
I like a dress. I like a dress. I'm really lazy, a very lazy, very lazy person, very lazy individual. I like a dress because I just put one thing on.
Yeah.
I don't have to think about a look, creating a look. I put one thing on, and then I love footwear. Like, I'm obsessed with footwear. Like, I love boots. I love trainers. So I tend to like a dress and some kind of fancy-ish footwear. A dress for me, but it is because I'm lazy. I just find it easier to throw on a dress.
So you're exploring, looking to the world of fashion.
Yes.
Like you said, you're trying to find your style, what makes you feel comfortable. What do you think a lot of fashion brands are missing then? What do you think they need to do to be more inclusive?
I think there's so much diversity and representation missing. It's sometimes it stuns me. I won't say the name of the brand, but I went on a website the other day, and I scrolled through so many pages of items, and they were all modelled on one body type. And it was the same body type that we've only ever seen, very thin, very thin. And I just don't think we're in that place anymore. As a consumer, we don't want that anymore. We want to see items on people that have similar body sizes to us. And I know that can be difficult logistically for brands, but I just think this absolute lack of diversity is really harmful to consumers, and it continues to perpetuate these body standards and continues to perpetuate the thin ideal. So I would love to see, when you're going on a website and you're looking for clothes, to see clothes on all types of body sizes, and we don't have to. I think a lot of people have this misconception of, oh, you don't like skinny people, you don't want skinny people to be seen, and that's not the case at all. I think all body types should be seen, and that's what's missing, is we're only seeing one. The consumer has moved on, and I wish that the industry would catch up and just embrace different body types, really, because it would just make everyone feel better. It would make the people who work for those brands feel better as well, feel better and just more comfortable in their own skin. Everyone would be.
And it's to stop the cycle, because if years ago when you were working in the industry, you saw a normal body.
Right. I mean, I don't think
your mentality would have been completely different.
Completely different. I don't think I ever saw a body that was above a size 8, really. It just wasn't normal, which, when you consider that the average UK size, female size, is a 16.
Yeah.
It's like something's not adding up, It's something's not quite making sense.
The maths aren't working out.
No, they're really not.
Doesn't make sense. So I have gained a lot of understanding about your backstory, about what has shaped you as a person. You've had so much courage to be able to dig that deep inside yourself, to be so courageous to speak out, considering your background and your foundation and everything that you came from. If there's anybody listening now that is in that place, that dark place that you were in, what would you say to them to help them find their voice?
Oh, what would I say? I would say that, number one, it's cheesy, but you're not alone. A lot of people feel like this, and it's not your fault that you feel like this either. It's very normal, it's very common, and it's absolutely not your fault. I think that's really important. Secondly, I would say that self-compassion is one of the most important things that you can practice to help you get into a better place. And it took me a long, long time to even attempt to cultivate some self-compassion, because I was just so filled with self-loathing that I found that extremely difficult. But it was when I started to be kind to myself and just give myself a break that things really did start to turn around. And I think that's what's missing for a lot of us, is this self-compassion. We're taught to be compassionate to other people, but we're not taught it, particularly women, we're not taught it for ourselves. And, it's the classic, if you catch how you're talking to yourself and apply that to someone else, apply that to someone, would I say that to someone that I love? Would I say it to my mum or my sister or my friend? And it'll feel shocking to you. Like, of course I wouldn't. Why would I say that to them? It's cruel, it's mean, it's bullying. And yet we're so, it rolls off the tongue when we're saying it to ourselves. And I think it's so important to catch that and reframe and really tackle that inner critic.
I think this chat with you today is going to shape a lot of other people's futures.
Oh,
I think you've been a real inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
Shown a lot of bravery. Continue to do the work you do, because we need to see more people like you online. So for anyone who's scrolling right now, who's going to scroll after this, remember the girl in the photo doesn't even look like the girl in the photo.
Yes.
It's not real. It's not real.
Yeah.
Just go and follow you. What's your Instagram social so people know we can follow your page?
AlexLight_LDN.
Yeah, follow right now if you haven't already.
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
Thank you. This has been such a wonderful chat. I've really, really loved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're great.
Oh, thanks for listening to Shaping Success, a Simply Be podcast. If you like what you've heard, please give us a follow and a rating on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. Shaping Success is a Folding Pocket production.